Hello friends, it's Kayla. Today I'm going to tell you my least favorite books of 2023. I have a stack of, I think, 12 here that I had hyped up, that I thought were going to be great, that I was disappointed by, that I gave a 2-star. And then I also will have a stack of dishonorable mentions at the end that also got 2 stars, but I don't feel as disappointed or justified in my disappointment by them because they're genres maybe that I don't read a lot. The first 3 that I'm going to talk about, I think I have the same general feelings about why I didn't like it. And it was that these 3 focused so much on the form, the description, the stylistic choices of the writing. They were very poetic, they were very descriptive, and just the prose itself did not work for me when I wanted the plot to be something that actually made sense. And now even this doesn't feel completely fair because I read books a decent amount where I say the writing was beautiful, I don't really know what the book was about, but it was stunning. And I felt like these could have been that, but I was just hunting for some actual story that I could grasp onto, and it failed me. So we have The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Cobb, which was sent to me early, which is very kind. This one maybe isn't fair because I didn't like the last book I read from this author, but I thought this with like the plague doctor and the mermaid and what else? There was like a prince, I think. And it was about them doing something. There was this village of evil children. You could definitely decipher what this book was trying to say. I think it was talking about how various people are treated in society, but overall it was just too lyrical and vague for me to really be able to enjoy. Next up we have She Weeps Each Time You're Born by Quan Berry. We Ride Upon Sticks was one of my favorite books a couple years ago, and I thought me and Quan Berry were just like, were of one mind, like I got her. And then I read this and I was lost. It started out learning about a character who was buried and then survived and then could speak to the dead. And then from there, again, very lyrical prose, a lot of metaphor that I could not grasp. It was about war and destruction, but I don't really know what the plot was. And then Redder Days by Sue Rainsford, another author who I've loved before and thought this would be a huge hit. It was too strange, beautiful writing, but maybe because it veered into the culty, it was apocalyptic. It was about these twins who become like involved with each other while trying to survive this like toxic contagion that isn't even fully described. It was a confusing read and an uncomfortable read. It was about fear, I think. The next 2 are kind of similar in that I can decipher the plot better, but that they were both quirky horror. Even though they have horrific things going on, I think you would call them campy. And that just doesn't seem to be the horror that I'm gravitating towards. So we've got A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, another one that was sent to me early, so sorry. And then The September House by Carissa Orlando that I did purchase with my own money. Too much money, truly. I do understand why these are some people's favorite like haunted house stories of the year, and these are ones that I would not dissuade anybody from picking up. They just weren't my style. So A House with Good Bones follows a woman who goes back to her like childhood home, and the house is different. Her mother is changing things around the house that don't fit in line with her character, and she's questioning what is happening, how the house is like maybe controlling her mother. It had bugs and birds and creepy stuff, but I found the main character to be inconsistent. And I just think the book introduced too many ideas for such a short one that I didn't feel like settled in any concept at any point. And I just liked the pace of it as well as this one. This one I struggled with because we're again following a mother-daughter duo. In this one, the mother is in this house and is very aware of all of the hauntings going on, and the ghosts are kind of quirky. It is horrific, but it's also like there's just a ghost who is cooking her meals and cleaning the house. They're just a part of her everyday life, and then her daughter comes to stay and she has to keep all of that from her daughter. Also, her husband is missing, and so her daughter's coming to investigate that. I see how the ghost could make it fun for so many people. It was just too quirky and silly, and then the characters just arguing and talking. It was just dialogue for hundreds and hundreds of pages about like, why won't you tell me the truth, and where's my father, and you don't understand me. I found them kind of exhausting to read from. And then the mystery element itself, it's just the case of information being withheld from you until the author decides to tell you what happened, and I don't find that the most interesting. The next one was pretty devastating to me, and that's The Death I Gave Him by MX Liu. This is a Hamlet retelling. It's science fiction. I thought it would so be for me. It's a locked room mystery. We're in this laboratory and a man has just lost his father, and with his father's last breath, he says who has killed him. And so now they're stuck in this laboratory, him and a few other people, and he's trying to prove that the person killed his father. Because again, just like the last one, the mystery itself was not compelling. It wasn't written in a way that I felt like I was solving something. I felt very bogged down by all of the description and all of the time we spent doing other stuff and learning about other stuff. The communication style in here was fascinating. I think this was quite unique, but I wanted it to be fun where I found it exhausting. Next up, we have Sucker by Daniel Hornsby, which maybe shouldn't be on my list because I had never read from this author. I don't read this tone a lot, but I thought because it had to do with vampires, it would be for me. It was not. In this story, we're following a man and just him running his business and having sex and doing drugs, all while learning about this dark underbelly of the Silicon Valley society where people are consuming blood. It's based on real people and real business, but takes a look at it through like a paranormal satirical lens. I found it exhausting and dull. It wasn't funny. I should have DNF'd it, but it wasn't unreadable or it would have gotten a 1, but it was the only book I brought on a camping trip with me, so I did finish it, regrettably. Next up is a book I also didn't find funny, but the first one was, so I had high hopes. And this is not fair of me to have read because so many people put this on their least favorites list last year, but I decided to pick it up anyway. It's a sequel to Dial A for Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and this just didn't need to exist. The original story was quirky and wacky, and this one follows like a relationship that continues from the first one. The relationship is not fun. It's not nice to watch. It takes place at her wedding when she's trying to solve like this wild crime that she thinks has occurred, all the while her husband pops in like every chapter just sad that she's ignoring him and doing her own thing, and he doesn't know where she is. The pace was exhausting following it over just one day. It was quite absurd, recycled plot, much communication, even miscommunication for the reader, like we were just kind of directly lied to. I didn't like it. I think you'd call that my most popular opinion of all of them, so let's go to my most unpopular next, and that's The Push by Ashley O'Drain. This is a story about the impact of cycles of abuse. We're following a woman and she thinks that her daughter is bad or evil or something is wrong with her, and we are questioning throughout the entire book if it's her or if it's her daughter. They're obviously lacking this connection. It's talking a lot about how women don't get support when they're mothers, and they're not listened to and they're not believed. And while I completely agree that the topics are important and necessary, the story itself was incredibly dull. You could have cut it in half, it would have been the exact same story. I didn't feel necessarily connected or interested in any of the characters or their thoughts. I didn't think it was particularly well written. So we'll move on to the next one, which is Black Tide by Casey Jones, which started out with such promise. This is an apocalyptic story about this man and woman who are next door to each other. One of them is house sitting and they end up having a one-night stand, and then they wake up and the world is ending. They're encountering like kind of creatures, and now they're on this desperate journey of survival. I thought it was going to be so much more existential than it was. I thought it was going to really let us in on these characters, but every scene where we got to see them interact or got to know them better, it felt rushed. It felt like the author had no passion behind it. We really did not earn this romance, and it was so much more focused on, fairly, because that's what the book wanted to do, car chases and explosions and monsters and just action scenes, not typically my favorite style of apocalyptic literature. But it was what it wanted to be, and that's fine. Moving on to 0 Days by Ruth Ware. I have given Ruth Ware every rating except for a 1. This is technically my lowest rated from her, which at this point in her career, for Ruth Ware to be writing such a boring, basic mystery, it's shocking. It's another book for the list that I just found absolutely exhausting to get through. We're following a woman whose husband has died, and she thinks she's going to be implicated for the murder, so she decides to go on the run. But rather than following her actually picking up clues and learning things and solving the mystery, she's just like injured and starving and sad for hundreds of pages. And while I love a survival story, this is just not what I'm looking for. She would make the most grand leaps of logic and it would just turn out to be correct, and the first person you call is the person you suddenly needed. Everybody just had all the right answers at every turn, but then it still took like 200 pages, it felt like, to get to every single answer. Somehow it was so fast paced, yet nothing happened. And for a mystery to get such a low rating, you know that I found it incredibly predictable. So that was disappointing. The last one is also a mystery, but is it? It's A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. It was my least favorite of my own book club of the year. This is the story of a couple and their tumultuous relationship and everybody looking at them in their tumultuous relationship. That's it. That's the plot. Sure, they did something terrible back in the day. Sure, there's a detective trying to figure it all out. But this is really a drama, not a thriller. It's just them deciding if they want to be together. And then we get all of these POVs from everybody they've ever met and their opinions on their tumultuous relationship. It had too many characters for no reason. There was no real reveals or connections to be made, and I didn't like my time with it. And now to run through everything else that I gave a 2-star and my dishonorable mentions. The Trap by Tabitha King. Arsenic and the Azaleas and Bones the Begonias by Dale Meyer. Terrible cozy mystery series. All Hollows by Christopher Golden. Just not what I wanted it to be. The Hole by Hye Young Pyun. Not what I wanted it to be. One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake, which wasn't selected in a way that was because I thought I would love it. It was just for a video, so I hold no anger towards that one. Stripped to the Bone by Gada Alatrash should have been a different genre. And then all of my romance, because I thought I was in my romance era, and I'm not. Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Leese. Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. Pestilence by Laura Thalassa. The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams. The Bromance Book Club by Lissa K. Adams, and The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. And then I think there are some books that I don't physically have with me. Set on You, I can't remember who that's by. And then a couple nonfictions that I technically didn't rate, but like, they're in my least favorites. Radical Acceptance, How to Do Nothing, and 4,000 Weeks. They didn't work for me, but they might work for you. And that's it for the one day of fa la 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 that I get to be a certified hater, and now we can move on to joy tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Bye.